Hey everyone, welcome back to the Happy School podcast, where we discuss what it takes for all kids to be happy in school. Because right now, that's not really the case for everyone. I'm your host, Katharine Hsu, and today I have two special guests here with me to talk about the word success. We all want kids to be successful, right? But how do we define what success looks like? It's interesting how we all want our kids to be successful, but we might not have the same definition of what we mean by success. And that little difference can really impact our kids' happiness and even stress levels. For example, right now, schools measure success through standardized reading and math tests, but do you measure your kids' success that way? Mike and Lou are parents of one of the students I work with, and their child has blossomed in the past year. So I'm excited to bring them on here to learn about their definition of success for their kids and what they are doing to help them be successful and happy in life. Here we go. Hello, Mike and Lou.
Thank you for having us, Catherine.
I'm super excited to chat with you guys. So, I would love to know. I work with Dan all the time, and he is just a very well-rounded kid. So, I'd love to know, do you guys have a philosophy of how do you define a successful, happy child for your kids?
I don't think we have a definition. I think I just want him to be happy and kind, a good person.
Mm.
And we were talking the other day, it's events and birthday parties and sports, and like, I want you to always be inclusive, not exclusive. There's so much diversity, and you go to events and parents don't like other parents, so then the kids don't get invited, but then the kids get along. Or, I'm not gonna invite him because I like him and I play with him, but somebody else don't like him. Things like that. We see it with Angie too. And I always tell them, be inclusive, not exclusive, and invite who you want to invite. And I get it. If you don't want to be, you don't have to be their friend because we like the parents and vice versa. And if he likes the kid, we respect that and they're friends. We don't force not to hang out just because we don't like them or anything like that.
Yeah, I think our kids have been in a daycare since they were like two. It's had good diversity, which I think pinpoints what she's talking about, which has been really healthy for them. So they've been around a lot of different kids. We have girls and boys at their birthday parties. Notice my parents are like, "Oh my God, I can't believe how many the girls at Dan's birthday parties or vice versa are there." And as far as being successful, I think it comes naturally with us. We want them to be good kids and good people. That's our job as parents to help them treat others with respect and nicely. But also we need to help them be learning. That's where Miss Catherine came in. I think we were falling behind on that. We weren't reading as much to our kids. We had COVID. There's a lot of reasons of why, but we noticed Dan was falling behind once he got into elementary school. He was behind several levels in reading, and it's kind of like a shock. Oh my God, we got to do something here. Which is how we found Miss Catherine, and Dan's back to level. He caught up two levels and is going beyond at this point. But as far as measuring success, you don't want to just look at like test scores and stuff, which I do think that is an objective way. As much as I've said no, don't just look at test scores. It is an objective way to say, okay, as Catherine's working, he's gone up hundreds of points. But you can't just look at that. I think at Miller, we really get along well with the teachers, the other parents. It's a smaller school, I think probably helps. I'm not sure what the ratio is, but I feel like it's smaller than the average, which may be a good thing.
But also, if they ask for something that they really like, something like Angie really likes dance and cheer. So we support them in their hobbies
Yeah.
or their needs. Like when Dan really likes soccer and he wasn't as good, we got him a soccer coach. When we noticed that we were falling back and it was affecting them, we got you and we found you and we love
Yeah.
you and we stick to it. And we made them see that things, it's not one more test. It's not that you'll get less time to play. It's gonna help you grow and it's gonna help us grow as a family. It's an add-on that brings value to you, your life and our lives. And recognize that we don't know everything that we as much as we work from home and we have flexibility, we cannot sit and teach him how to read. English is my second language. It wouldn't be smart for me trying to teach him how to read and learn new things in that side of reading and speaking. He's a Stuco student.
Okay, yeah.
And it's the same for Angie. As much as Mike can drive her to classes and stuff, he's not gonna teach her how to dance and cheer. And neither do I. Supporting their hobbies is important. and recognizes when we're failing or when we don't have the skill, add it to their curriculum and enjoy it.
Yeah, and I think when I look at both of our kids, I feel like everybody's proud of their kids and they think their kids are doing great. I think we're no exception. We think that they're doing great, but they really are sweet kids, and we'll get a lot of comments on how thoughtful they are, just talking to other parents and just seeing they're just very sweet kids. And I think when I look at like how does this happen, I don't know, it's probably luck, but I do think we spend a lot of quality time with them. I think it's natural for us. They're not just our kids, but they're like, you're not supposed to look at them as your friend probably, but I can't help it. Like we treat them with respect
Yeah.
too, not just a condescending, do this, do that. We more of, yes, that's definitely part of it. Whether we're like, maybe we're watching YouTube together a lot, as much as you're not supposed to do that. I think there's more studies coming out. If you're doing stuff together, that counts because they feel the bond, and the more they feel that bond of being together with their parents, the more that gives them. I think they naturally aren't as anxious and they can just blossom, I think.
Yeah, don't get me wrong, as Mike said, like we watch YouTubes with them and Dan gets so excited with football YouTubes. Mommy, you gotta watch this. He's not here. He comes to me and like, of course, sweetie.
Yeah,
That's so great. And I didn't understand half of the
brutal.
2-minute video, but going he's here, I love it because he gets to understand that.
Yeah, like you were saying, what they're excited about, even if you have to act like you're excited about it, making yourself do that is a big part of it. And there's some things that you do in playing Xbox with Dan. We do that quite a bit, and I enjoy that one. But and so does he. And so and then with Angie, I'll lay in her bed and watch videos with her, which that doesn't sound very productive, but she loves it, and it's just our little time together. And I think it brings our bond closer.
I'm recognizing that.
Yeah. But then you have Miss Catherine, and that's where they learn all the reading parts. So
I know recognizing that if Angie likes to watch SpongeBob with him, and then there's 2 or 3 days that he's busy and he hasn't done it. And she tells me, and I have to go and tell, hey, she misses SpongeBob. And then he tells me the same things. You haven't drive him to something, and he really wants you to be there. I'm like, fine. Not getting upset, and as he say, like pushing each other to be there for our kids.
yeah.
That is amazing and also a lot to unpack. I want to paraphrase like one thing that
A long answer.
I know, but it was perfect. It
Sorry.
was amazing. No, it was, don't be sorry. That's exactly what I want this to be, where yes, I'm asking a question and yes, I'm hosting, but I think that the listeners would want to hear from you guys, right? And it's really cool. You almost could have your own podcast. You guys got to bounce off of each other.
No. We'll leave that to you, Miss Catherine. Leave that to you.
But you know, something I hear just from a child development place is that you guys, yes, you prioritize academics, but it's almost secondary to character, right? You guys really value your child's character and making sure that they have good character. And you are doing that not by just telling them, you're doing it by like almost modeling it yourself through like quality time and through the way you're talking with them, and you like speak to them as an equal, you don't talk down to them. So then that makes me think of like when I was a child, like this idea, Lou, you said, where you let them come to you guys to say, hey, I want to do dancing, I want to do soccer, and then you make an activity. When I was a child, that was not it. Your family, your parents choose what activities to put you in. And I think that in a lot of ways, there's a lot of parents who still are doing that. And I don't think that they are doing that because they want their kids to be unhappy. I think that's just what they believe will help their kids be successful. How would you, when you like hang out with friends, like how would you like get somebody who is doing that to switch to let the kid decide? Because I think sometimes kids are told you have to do this, you have to do this, now you have to do tutoring, now you have to do this, and it makes them feel like these are like tasks and obligations. And I think that impacts, if we want our child to be successful, but we're telling them what to do, that extracurricular activity turns into an obligation rather than something they're joyful about. And I think maybe that's why when Dan comes to class, it's not an obligation. I'm always worried that he's going to be like, oh, it's reading, it's tutoring, but he's truly just interested, because I think he's never been told by you guys, we are going to make you do these things. It's really like they have some autonomy. So like, how do you have any advice? Like, how would you get families to switch that kind of mentality? Because it's hard.
For me, what comes to mind in my job, I deal with negotiations, and it's just like negotiations, whether it's with your husband and wife or your kids, everything's a negotiation when you're talking with people. And what is known to work and what there's more evidence, more and more these days you hear about is the active listening and more focusing on the other person, asking the kid, asking them what they're obviously what they're interested in or what do you want to do, and just listen for what gets them excited and make it about them, not about what you want to do. Turn it on them and focus, let the focus be on their interests and what gets them excited and just asking the kid what they want to do. And for us, maybe it's been easy because they have interest. I don't know if you have a kid that's like, all I want to do is play Xbox. That's going to be harder. Maybe you do, okay, you need to play a sport, you can pick one. I don't know.
So I was raised like that. Like my parents always let me do what I wanted. Well, they encouraged my hobbies, I guess that's the right way to say it. And I think they still do to the point. And they never, because I come from divorced parents, so they never put a gender on activities. It was never like, you cannot do this because you're a woman, or you should not do this. Like my mom was like, you should not have to change a tire, and you should not have to cook and clean the house, things like that. Now,
Yeah.
I'll be honest, I don't like sports, so it was never on my genes and my hobbies. But dance it was, but it's the same for Dan. Dan likes cooking, and he did a video for school of cooking. I don't tell him, oh, you're a boy, you don't cook. But when you ask, like, how will we talk to parents about it? I don't think I will make them change it. I think I will just show a value if they do it different. Like for you, I think as soon as we met you over a year ago, I recommended you to half of my friends. And I don't think within the first 3 months you got anybody coming to you guys or to you. And it took a while. And it took Dan talking about you and what he does and how much he learned. And I was like, oh, yes. And the teachers, even on our school Facebook page, they have comment about your stuff. And they have mentioned Dan tutor and Dan this. So then people start asking because they see how happy he is when he comes to you. And the first comments that I got for a while was like, tutors that come to your house or that you send them to their house, they don't have good structure, or they cannot handle ADHD, or they cannot handle. There was always an excuse, or it's too far, or I don't like to have people in my house. There was always an excuse for things. But when they met you and after a first session or two sessions, they're like, oh, you know what you're doing, and their kids like to go there. One of Dan's friends, and I send that to you. This I don't need to go to school. I have Miss Katharine. I can learn everything with her.
Yeah, I think I'm on point with you is I don't think you can actually change anybody's beliefs or behaviors by just telling them or saying them, but actions and seeing it really makes a difference. I think that's why a lot of tutoring places, they don't allow parents to be there. They say you have to drop them off and they don't want you to see. And I'm super against that because I feel like if parents sat and watched the way I started watching teaching, it changed my beliefs because I wanted kids to be successful, but I had no other example than what I grew up with. So I feel like if families or educators, if they saw an example, that speaks volumes more than someone telling you like, hey, this person's really good. So now the parents get to see, and then they can see how awesome their kids are, and now they can advocate for them, and now their mindsets are changing. So I do wish that more soccer practice, football practice, parents get to watch. So I
Right.
don't
Yeah.
understand
You
why.
should be able to see what your methods are. And your methods, I think what I noticed right away is that you really paid attention to the student and how they learn. And because every student's different, and whether Dan likes nonfiction, he's not going to read a fiction book, or the way he's processing stuff. I don't think teachers can afford the time to do that because they have so many students. So right away, when I saw like the way you were working with them, I was like, oh, this is interesting. And then you start seeing results,
Yeah.
and that's,
You guys also mentioned quality time and how you guys really care about that. And I think that maybe that's why it works because quality
yeah,
time, well, one, it's my love language, but second, that I think is very powerful for kids. Lou, when you mentioned Dan comes to you with a YouTube video and you may not want to do it, but you just are, yes, I would love to. That happens in class. You just have no idea. But when they're like telling me all about Pokemon and Pikachu and things like
Oh,
that, it's not my 100% hobby that I do on my own. I don't collect Pokemon cards, but for them, it's so important that I know if I spend 5 minutes very engaged in that conversation about Pokemon, they're showing me a video, they will trust me for the rest of the class and moving
um,
forward. So I think that quality time,
makes sense.
yeah,
I
is
remember when I picked him up and he was like, "Yeah, we played basketball for a while." And my initial thought process is like, "We're paying for him to play basketball." But then, or I think he was nervous about his basketball game, so he wanted
Mhm.
to talk to you about it.
Yes.
Those that 5 minutes that you talked to him, like you said, probably by the rest of the session, he probably made him learn 10 times better. So that's so interesting. Yeah, the kids just need to be heard and you need to show interest. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and
Really
also
cool.
he's associating me with learning, and I was interested in
Hmm.
his hobbies in basketball, and therefore those things no longer are separated. Learning is also a place that cares about
Okay.
my interests, my hobbies, and then therefore I'm interested in learning because learning
Wow.
cares about me,
And the
right?
teachers aren't doing that at school. They can't, I don't
They
think.
don't have
Maybe
the time, they have to make
maybe
it.
some can to an extent.
And to a point, they're graded to this curriculum. Even if they can do better themselves,
They have to
they
follow.
have to follow, they have to check the box.
Yeah.
Yes, and I think that's what I think that this whole podcast is hopefully one of the reasons is I would like for what we are focused on in school to change because I'm pretty sure schools want kids to also be really happy and successful, but we're
Yeah.
focusing on the things that actually are what's causing kids to maybe not become successful and happy because the teachers have to teach these sets of standards and skills, and they don't have time to actually make sure kids have quality time, feel understood, and really meet each kid at where they are at with their reading levels and what their learning styles are. Because we're focused on all kinds of reading and math skills that we don't really actually use in real life. Where, and this is a tangent, but I think that we should be teaching a lot more about finance and math because that's what we're using math mostly for in life. And yet we are spending a lot of math time on other skills that it's not as big of a priority or need. And then doing that means we also can't meet the kids' emotional and so yeah, so to your point with the basketball, Dan likes to have sports in his life, and I would need him to see that learning is also a place that he
Right.
can have sports. So I've got to put in the games with the spelling, with the phonics stuff. So that is really cool that you guys' values match mine, but we've never actually talked about it.
Yeah, I think it's so I don't think I've ever realized that. But yeah, it's that again, it's that quality time, like you said, that the kid needs to be heard and it needs to be a two-way conversation.
And I think though the quality time piece is probably why Zoom has been really successful because we didn't just go straight to Zoom, especially because a lot of the reading work that he needed to be hands-on. If I gave him worksheets, our learning time wouldn't feel like quality time. But because it was like very game-based or play-based, it felt like quality time. We had built a relationship and a trust so that when he sees me on Zoom, he's still engaged. And I think that there are other things that I do, like I have him draw sometimes the last 5 minutes of class, and it has nothing to do with the actual literacy, but he's like feeling like I'm going to spend quality time with him while he draws something he really cares about. And I'm giving him compliments, and I feel so good about this. So he wants to come back for the learning piece and then the drawing piece. I think that, I don't know, it sounds so not as important as going over test questions every single time. But for me, I feel like that gives me 5 more sessions that he's engaged in and wants to be if I give him these 5 minutes of drawing time with me, where I'm
And
super engaged in the car.
he
He's,
has his basket for your class. Do you know that?
yeah, I
He
know.
has a little basket with paper and crayons and colors and pencil, and Angie cannot touch it. Like the
Mhm.
one time Angie tried to play with it and color from it, he almost lost it. And he came downstairs crying, "Mommy." And it was like a year or two ago, and I guess at the beginning, but this is special for Miss Catherine. Okay,
Oh.
okay. Let me find her something else. It is to your point, like he valued that so much that he doesn't use that unless it's for your class.
Yeah. And then, Mike, when you said the technology piece, that's another thing that everything about our lives and our jobs is technology related. And that feels like a secondary thought in schools right now, where the only time they really use technology is taking the end of year, the Texas Star. And maybe once in a while they do one project. But I feel like kids should be constantly learning, like, how do you format appropriately? How do you safely
Yes.
research on Google? How do you like multitask and organize all your tabs and do projects, right? And set like a goal and all of these things. Even things like writing with a font where the background is not the same color.
Yep.
So for presentation purposes, when they grow up, they need those skills. These are all skills we get to touch on during our literacy classes. And I just wish that those would be things we prioritize in school because that's what kids need to be successful. And I don't want kids to learn that on their own. Like it's going to take a
Yeah.
while.
Yeah, I feel like they have game time or something on the computers.
Start doing that, and I know in Stuco they have third, fourth, and fifth grade, so they do get to do presentations and create their own flyers for the school, and they're in the hallway. But as far as I know, it recently started. I don't know if it started because of the time or because they're in third grade now.
Yeah,
He
as
said it
they,
now.
as they get older.
Yeah.
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 And what's, I think Stugo is like a extra thing, right? It's not an
Mhm.
It's a student council. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Imagine if one of the end of year assessments is that they have to put together a presentation and being assessed on delivery, the content, and the visual about it. That I think any job you get into, you need those skills.
Right.
And that's
I mean,
bringing,
surely they're doing that in high school, maybe. I don't know. I don't know if you work with high school students or not, but
yeah, they will do it in the sense of, hey, you need to complete a project and here are the ways to, here's what's required. But there's not an
right.
actual like lessons. Like we should
Right.
teach a lesson on
Yeah.
graphic design, on multitasking, on say, there's not actually lessons. It's just complete these things, get it done. Here's what you'll be graded on.
Right.
But anyways, I just sidetracked, but I love that you guys care about character and quality time and academics. So the question I had is, Lou, you had mentioned you've shared all the right colors to a lot of families and they've come, and now I just think Miller is like some magical school with kids who if I didn't have all these other clients from other places, I'd be like, maybe I should just build a house right next to Miller. Like all
Hey,
these,
perfect. Perfect. I can help you with that.
I know, exactly. But I guess it makes me think a lot about schools and choosing schools for families. And Mike, you're in real estate, so you probably talk about this all the time with families, but something that has really bothered me a lot is I've always worked with in schools that are inclusive and diverse. But if you go
Right.
online and look up these schools, they're actually not rated A plus. Sometimes they're rated C and D, and I'm just blown away because I think this school is amazing. Then I'll work with school teachers at other schools that are rated A plus, and it feels cold. It feels like a lot of stress and just a lot of things. So, what advice do you have for families in finding a good school? Because this impacts neighborhoods they choose, districts. Mike, you posted for listeners. Mike has a real estate Instagram. And he posted one time like top, what is it, like top 10 school districts?
Yeah, it was just a random idea. Top 10 school districts in the Dallas DFW area, I think.
Yeah,
And
and
it
it
got like a million, it got like millions of, it's just been viral. It was pretty crazy. It's very personal. It showed me schools are very personal.
right. And but not everyone is going to be picking a Miller, right? And they want a
Right.
Miller. So what should they be really looking at? How do you find a school like that?
This is hard for me because you've helped me gain perspective because I'm not gonna lie, like we were in Richardson and the schools are rated like threes around us, and we were concerned. So we did use rankings to end up where we are in Murphy, Plano ISD. It was a combination of what budget we weren't going to afford private schools. We weren't going to be in Lovejoy or Highland Park because there's super expensive houses. But in Plano ISD, Wiley ISD did well enough in the rankings where we felt comfortable with it. And honestly, we got really lucky with Miller. I think it's a smaller elementary, I believe. It is Plano ISD. But it's really hard. It's hard because you can look at parent reviews and all that kind of stuff, but I do feel those can be very subjective. You're going to have a lot more of the bad experiences on there than the good experiences. But I think you opened up my perspective. I think diversity is great, which we've got more from our daycare than Miller is, not super high on diversity, I don't think, compared to some schools. But I think you can have a good experience really anywhere at a lot of different schools. But I think just talking to more people.
I've been thinking about this for a while because I know you asked before, Catherine. He's always been the researcher of the family. Even when we were looking for apartments when we were dating, this is a safe neighborhood, this is it. He always brought the numbers.
I think it's a dad thing. Yeah. I was
No,
researching all the
thing.
schools.
Yes,
It'll be fine.
I know. I'm more like, oh, I like the house. But when we got married and just living here, I was born and raised in Mexico, and he was obviously here. He, for him, was different because he was raised in a white neighborhood, less diverse. And then for me, I was always looking for diversity.
Mm.
But even when my family comes, like a lot of Hispanic, they don't live in the areas that we can afford. So when we go to neighborhood, that was the one thing that I was like, I will ask the realtor, okay, what kind of families live here? We will drive around. That was one thing that we did together, like driving around the neighborhood, looking the people around to see to see if we can see neighbors walking the dogs or taking the trash out or something. Because for me, diversity was important. Now, it was a hit or miss because we did went to neighborhoods that we love the houses, we like it, and it was like either all white, all Asian, like we had to look. And it was not like, oh, we see a specific type and we like it or not like it, but it was more like we see a mix.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a diversity of our neighbors, and some of them we still in touch and stuff, but we have we had a neighbor that just to rescue animals in Richardson, and she still email me about animals. And once a year, she asks about how we're doing, and we have new kids and stuff. And once a year, I respond the email. But she's white, and her husband is Russian. We always look for diversity. We never look into political science or churches. One thing was for me was diversity, and then for him was safety and school ranking. And as he said, we really look into the schools ranking and within the neighborhoods that we wanted to be safe, we wanted to be diverse. It's hard to always have diversity too, but also because you're gonna live where you were raised, right? If you're too Hispanic, they're gonna try to stay within Hispanic neighborhood, things like that. But diversity is a big thing for us.
Yeah, even the fact that when you said diversity, some people define diversity as it could be like all black and that's diversity, or all Asian and that's the diversity. But I actually had a colleague she's from Brooklyn, and she was the one's like, no, true diversity is when all people are represented, and there's
Right.
lots of that. Yeah, I think the idea that driving around neighborhoods and actually seeing it for yourself, research can get you to like certain places, but then you got to use your human feelings
Right.
and
For sure.
observations to do it. I just see a lot of families who feel bad about they worked really hard to find a great school, and there's a lot of school districts who are working really hard to sell themselves as the best school, and their kids just are not happy there because they're not being understood and recognized for their kinds of brilliance. And it's just really, it's hard to, as a person who this is my job, I wish I could help people proactively not get to that point.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also a fun fact, I don't know did I tell you this about private schools? A lot of private schools do not require a teacher to have a teacher certification. So you do not
Wow.
actually need to
Mhm.
have gone to school to get like a master's in education or an education degree. You can, if you just have a degree in biology, then you can be a private school
Yes.
teacher. However, the thing is you can be really good in your subject and not know how to teach children how to get there, right? Because you have to understand
Right.
child development, you have to understand learning psychology to be able to do that. But a lot of teachers in private schools are not like that. And I think it's interesting because parents are, in America at least, parents believe private schools are the best because they've been told that and they'll pay
Hmm.
that much. But the teachers' salary is a lot lower in private schools. That's why I've never been in private
Yeah,
school.
that's what I've heard.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, exactly. You're like, what? I just used to assume that they
But I
get
never.
paid more, but
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
yeah, not necessarily. They teachers may want it because they may deal with less
Well,
issues, I think.
and that was a hot topic for us when we were getting prepared to have a first kid. When you're planning, and
Yeah.
then end up coming on the time that we were never prepared. But I was raised in a private school all the way to college. He was in a public school all the way to college.
Yeah.
So we didn't know where we were going to fall out, but we love our school right now. We love our diverse friends.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think we lucked out. I'm very proud of Plano ISD for sure.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've had other good experiences. You get to hear it from all the parents, which I'm sure is very unique. I've heard a lot of things through my social media. People like these schools, let's say Allen or these schools that are rated very well, and these students feel very strongly how it was not a good experience, and they let me know. And I'm
Mm.
like, very much. I'm like, man. So it's maybe it's one of those things. Well, not every kid is right for every school. I don't know,
Also,
but
it
there's
depends
certainly going to
on,
be bad experiences in good schools.
Mhm.
but even let's say when I taught every grade, but let's say on my fourth grade team, and they're like, oh, this school is really great. Me versus the teacher next to me versus the teacher down the hall, we could have three completely different ways of how we work with children. And the kids with me would see that the school is amazing, whereas like they
Right.
working with a different teacher and they're like, the school is awful. And it's just based on that one single teacher.
Mm,
It's sometimes luck. It sometimes has to do with that principal and the hiring that they do to make
yeah.
sure, and also what that school and that district values. And with, I know Dallas ISD, especially in the wealthier neighborhoods, there's a lot of pressure that's being put on testing and scores and kids, and the kids feel it. But no, Plano, so far, I have seen probably the best feedback from family. So if they come to me, it's really because, hey, our teacher has already highlighted this about our child. And so we would like some support, and their values are pretty aligned with what I do, and their teachers at school are very supportive. So it feels like a whole team working together. Other
Right.
school districts, I have had parents who come to me because they're like, their child has been very unhappy in school and in their class, and they can't figure out why. And they just want to see their child be more successful, and they're having issues with their teacher or their school. So that's why they're coming to me. And then from those families, when they see their kids happy and thriving again, and they're noticing, oh, it's because they need to learn this way, it's changing their whole, maybe they're looking for a different school for the following year, or they change the way that they're supporting that child. So different purpose, but Plano overall, I'm getting a very similar theme that's they're very mindful of seeing the kids for their strengths. It's definitely
Good.
generalizing, but so far
Well,
that's
we have a great principal and assistant principal, and our teachers are awesome. We love them.
Yeah.
yeah. But it's not just y'all school, it's actually several other Plano schools that
Yeah.
so it's pretty cool. All right, the last question I want to ask you here, since the podcast is called The Happy School, if you were to develop your dream happy school, public, private, doesn't matter, what would you want to include? And now that you guys are on the PTA, you've seen all that stuff, like what might be something that you would want to not include in schools?
Mhm. I'm leaving this for the PTA president.
Hey.
No, you guys have to both contribute.
Is it good?
I think supportive staff, that's really important. I think that has made a big difference for our kids in both schools, the daycare and the school, elementary school. Both school had supportive teachers and teachers that loved them and that made them feel care.
Hmm.
I think curriculum wise, I'm not qualified for that side, but I would like to see, as you say, finance, cooking, and then emotional intelligence.
Yeah. I think seeing your methods work, trying to understand how their students learn and tailoring as much as they can. I know that's hard with more students, but really trying to, where we're talking about listening to the students and trying to understand them, giving them quality time we were discussing, some little small, whether it's more small breaks, or if I ask Dan about his school, it's always about recess. Obviously, that's his favorite time. Whether or not there's some little, maybe some smaller activities that you could do throughout the day that would freshen up their brains for learning would be nice.
That's a really great point you just made. Every kid says recess is their favorite time. It would be
Yeah,
really cool if we could change school where the kids don't just see recess as the only happy favorite time. We could probably
Yeah.
look,
right.
you know,
Exactly. Yeah.
what does that mean about the rest of the learning time?
Whatever they're doing at recess, something maybe you could break that into smaller times, and so they don't just look forward to that one point in
Yes.
the
Yeah.
day.
Yes.
Um,
My guess is talking and socializing and play. They get to do
yeah,
that during recess, so we should incorporate that more.
Parents' involvement, like we obviously met our elementary school right after COVID because Dan went to kindergarten COVID year online. So we have seen the change from parents not being involved to now that they're involved and coming in and being participating. Even the kids get excited, and even the kids now that you let them have lunch with them, the parents can come or grandparents can come and have a lunch. It's 20 minutes of their life, but they're excited or knowing that mom is going to be there for the holiday party, which is 30 minutes. But you hear the kids talking about, my mom is going to be here. Your mom didn't make it. My mom is going to be here.
and volunteering for the PTA is a good.
That is true.
If you have a really welcoming and inclusive president like you, Lou, then yes, people
Right.
would volunteer because I have worked in schools where there is no PTA. And it was very fascinating to me. It was predominantly Black and brown school. There was no PTA. And when we asked parents, they said it's because we feel like the administrators in this school and the teachers felt like they were better than us. So we don't want to contribute.
Wow.
And we don't feel very welcomed because it felt like we're here to save your kids, and they felt very embarrassed because they're from other countries and things like that. So we could do a whole podcast on parent
Interesting.
involvement.
Yeah.
But yes,
Yes.
Yeah. That's a whole nother.
I think like Mike, when you say you treat your kids as equals, I think
Yeah.
that's a whole nother podcast we could talk about, like how can we have teachers and parents see each other as equals more so that there is more
Yeah.
involvement, because the only thing that will benefit is the kids and everyone. Everyone will be happier at
Yeah.
the school if we do that. Egos are involved, all kinds of things, but okay, thanks so much for taking the time to chat today. It was a treat to have you, and I'm sure
It
that
was fun.
Yeah.
Thank you
I
so
I
much.
was nervous. It was fun. Thank you for having us.
Yeah. I was a little nervous. I wasn't sure if we'd have any answers.
I know.
It's
Oh my
always
gosh,
easy
that
to
was
talk.
amazing. You guys
It's
like
always
had,
easy to talk with Miss Catherine. We always have good conversation. So you do a very good job of making it organic. So we appreciate that.
oh yay, I'm so happy. And I hope that also helped you guys see like how much value you guys have gained in the past 9 years of parenting and how much people can be really inspired for what you guys are doing. But what I love is that you guys don't force it on people. You just do it by action, by the way,
Yeah.
by example. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hi, listeners. Thanks for joining. And if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share our podcast with a friend or neighbor. Your one click to subscribe can help us move up the charts and get discovered by other people just like you. Email us at alltherightcolors@gmail.com if you have a topic suggestion or if you'd like to be on the podcast. You can also follow us on Facebook and Instagram at All the Right Colors. Have a happy day and see you in the next episode.